I was staying at a cabin in the woods with my friends for a weekend getaway. We had rented the place online, and it looked cozy and charming. It had a fireplace, a hot tub, and a beautiful view of the lake. It was supposed to be a fun and relaxing trip, but it turned out to be a nightmare. It started on the first night when we heard a loud knock on the door. We opened it and saw a man standing outside. He was tall and thin, with a long beard and a hat. He wore a plaid shirt and jeans, and he had a shotgun in his hand. He looked like a hunter, but there was something off about him. His eyes were wide and wild, and his smile was twisted and sinister. He introduced himself as Sam ***, the owner of the cabin. He said he was just checking on us, and he wanted to make sure we were comfortable. He asked if we needed anything, and he offered to show us around. We were polite and friendly, but we felt uneasy. We didn't know who he was or why he was here. We had already paid for the cabin online, and we didn't need his help. We thanked him and told him we were fine. We asked him to leave, and he did, but not before giving us a warning. He said that the woods were dangerous at night and that we should stay inside. He said that there were things out there that we didn't want to see or hear or touch. He said that there were things that would make us scream and cry and beg for mercy. He said that there were things that would make us wish we were dead. He said it with a grin and a laugh and a wink. We thought he was joking or crazy or both. We closed the door and locked it. We laughed it off and tried to forget about him. We decided to have some fun and enjoy ourselves. We lit the fireplace, opened some beers, and played some games. We had a good time and we felt safe and happy. But we were wrong. We didn't notice it at first, but things started to change. The lights flickered, the temperature dropped, the wind howled. We heard strange noises like footsteps, whispers, growls. We saw shadows, shapes, movements. We felt eyes, breaths, touches. We were not alone. We were terrified. We tried to call for help, but there was no signal. We tried to escape, but the doors and windows were locked. We tried to fight, but we were outnumbered and overpowered. We tried to scream, but no one heard us. We were doomed. One by one, we were taken. One by one, we were tortured. One by one, we were killed. I was the last one left. I hid under the bed, hoping to survive, hoping to be spared, hoping to be rescued. But it was hopeless. I heard him coming. I heard his footsteps, his voice, his laugh. I heard him say my name. He found me. He dragged me out of the bed, and I saw his face. It was Sam. He was not a man, not a hunter. He was not the owner of the cabin. He was a monster. He had horns, fangs, claws. He had scales, fur, feathers. He had eyes, ears, mouths. He had parts of animals, parts of humans, parts of things I couldn't name. He was a nightmare. He smiled at me and I saw his teeth. They were sharp and stained with bits of flesh and blood. He said he had been waiting for me. He said he had saved me for last. He said he had something special for me. He said he wanted to play. He lifted me up and I felt his grip. It was strong and tight with nails and spikes. He carried me to the fireplace and I felt the heat. It was hot and bright with flames and sparks. He threw me into the fire and I felt the pain. It was intense and unbearable with burns and blisters. I was driving home from work on a dark and stormy night. I just finished a long shift at the hospital and I was looking forward to a hot shower and a good night's sleep. I turned on the radio to keep me company, but all I could hear was static and some faint voices. I tried to tune in to a different station, but nothing seemed to work. I decided to turn it off and focus on the road. The rain was pouring down hard and the wind was howling. I could barely see the road ahead of me. I slowed down and turned on my high beams, hoping to avoid any accidents. I was driving on a deserted highway, surrounded by woods. There were no other cars in sight. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about this night felt wrong. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. It was almost midnight. I wondered how much longer it would take me to get home. I checked my phone, but there was no signal. I cursed under my breath. I wished I had taken a different route, but it was too late to turn back now. Suddenly, I saw something move in the corner of my eye. I looked to my left and saw a figure standing by the side of the road. It was a woman wearing a white dress and a veil. She had long black hair and pale skin. She was holding a bouquet of flowers in her hands. She looked like a bride, but there was something off about her. Her dress was torn and stained with blood. Her veil was covering her face, but I could sense a cold stare behind it. She was looking right at me. I felt a surge of fear and panic. Who was she? What was she doing here? Was she a ghost? A hitchhiker? A killer? I didn't know, and I didn't want to find out. I stepped on the gas and tried to drive past her as fast as I could. I hoped she wouldn't notice me, or worse, follow me. But as I got closer to her, she suddenly moved. She stepped onto the road and raised her arm as if to signal me to stop. I swerved to avoid her, but it was too late. I heard a loud thud as I hit her with my car. I felt a jolt of pain as the airbag deployed and hit me in the face. I screamed and lost control of the wheel. The car spun out of control and crashed into a tree. I blacked out for a moment. When I came to, I was still in the car, but everything was silent. The rain had stopped, and the wind had died down. The only sound I could hear was my own breathing. I looked around and saw that the car was badly damaged. The windshield was cracked, the hood was dented, and the engine was smoking. I felt blood dripping from my nose and mouth. I tried to move, but I was trapped by the seatbelt and the airbag. I reached for my phone, hoping to call for help, but it was gone. It must have flown out of the window when I crashed. I felt a surge of despair. I was alone, injured and stranded. No one knew where I was. No one would come to save me. I looked out of the window, hoping to see someone, anyone. But there was no one. The road was empty. The woods were dark. The night was still, except for her. She was standing outside the car, looking at me. She had followed me. She had survived the crash. She was still holding the bouquet of flowers, but they were wilted and dead. She lifted her veil and I saw her face. It was the most horrifying thing I had ever seen. She had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. She had only a gaping hole where her face should be. She had no expression, no emotion, no humanity. She had only a hunger, a thirst, a malice. She was not a woman. She was not a bride. She was not a ghost. She was a monster. She reached for the door handle and I heard a click. She opened the door and I saw her hand. It was pale and bony, with long nails and sharp claws. She grabbed me by the collar and I felt her breath. It was cold and foul, with a stench of death and decay. She pulled me out of the car and I felt her teeth. They were jagged and rotten, with a bite of pain and terror. She dragged me into the woods and I saw her smile. It was the last thing I ever saw. I always loved camping in the woods with my friends. We would tell stories, roast marshmallows, and enjoy the nature. It was our annual tradition, and we never missed a year. Until last year. Last year, we decided to camp in a new spot, deeper into the forest. We found a clearing near a lake and set up our tents. It was a beautiful place, and we were excited to explore it. But we soon realized that we were not alone. That night, as we were sitting around the fire, we heard a loud splash from the lake. We thought it was a fish, or maybe a beaver. But then we saw something emerge from the water. Something huge, scaly, and reptilian. Something that looked like a dragon. It roared and flew towards us, breathing fire and smoke. We panicked and ran for our lives, but it was too fast. It grabbed one of my friends with its claws and tore him apart. It snapped another one with its teeth and swallowed him whole. It chased me and the last survivor and cornered us in a cave. We thought we were doomed, but then we heard a gunshot. We saw a man with a rifle standing at the entrance of the cave. He shot the dragon in the eye and it fell to the ground, dead. He saved us and we thanked him profusely. He said he was a hunter and he had been tracking the dragon for a long time. He said he knew where it came from and why it was here. He said it was a genetic experiment created by a secret organization that wanted to use it as a weapon. He said it escaped from a lab and hid in the lake. He said he was part of a resistance group that fought against the organization and its evil plans. He said he had to destroy the dragon before it could breed or spread. He said he had to go, and he left us in the cave. He said he would come back for us after he reported his mission. He said he would take us to a safe place where we could join the resistance. He said he would tell us more when he returned. He never did. We waited for him for days, but he never came back. We ran out of food, water, and hope. We realized that he lied to us, that he was part of the organization, that he used us as bait. We realized that he left us here to die. We realized that we were not alone. We heard a loud splash from the lake. We saw something emerge from the water. Something huge, scaly, and reptilian. Something that looked like a dragon, but it was not the same dragon. It was bigger, stronger, and angrier. It was the dragon's mate, and it was looking for revenge. The night draped its inky tendrils over the world, casting my room into an abyss of darkness. Amidst the hushed symphony of the night, a distant sound tiptoed into my consciousness. At first, a mere whisper, a faint echo of footsteps traversing the hallway outside my room. My eyes flickered open, the weight of sleep still heavy upon them, and I found myself lying supine, a position wholly unfamiliar to my usual sleeping habits. A jolt of disorientation coursed through me as I attempted to make sense of the disconcerting posture. Straining against the remnants of slumber, I endeavored to turn my head, intending to discern the source of the disquieting noise. But to my alarm, my body refused to obey, ensnared in a state of eerie immobility. Panic bubbled within me, its tendrils winding around my chest, constricting my breath as I attempted futilely to break free from this inexplicable paralysis. The haunting rhythm of footsteps persisted, growing louder and more pronounced, each step a chilling reminder of an unwelcome intrusion. It was an unsettling symphony, the cadence of which reverberated through the walls, resonating with an unsettling familiarity that sent shivers down my spine. Anxiety blossomed within me, a petrifying realization that I was powerless to confront whatever entity crept nearer. The air thickened, suffused with an ominous tension as the footsteps breached the threshold of my room. A presence, palpable yet unseen, loomed over me, its weight pressing down on the air, a suffocating cloak of malevolence. A cold sweat trickled down my brow as I felt the specter draw closer, an invisible force that seemed to materialize within the confines of my room. Though the darkness veiled any visual confirmation, I could sense the piercing gaze fixated upon me, an unnerving stare that seemed to penetrate my very being. The deafening silence was punctuated by the unmistakable sound of ragged breathing, a disconcerting accompaniment to the looming threat. My heart, a frenzied drumbeat in my chest, threatened to burst forth as the realization dawned, a weapon glinting in the scant moonlight, gripped firmly in the intruder's hand, casting ominous shadows across the room. Trapped within the confines of my own vulnerability, I grappled desperately against the invisible restraints, a silent scream clawing at the confines of my throat. Every fiber of my being strained against the paralysis, a futile attempt to break free from this nightmarish tableau. Time warped and twisted, stretching moments into an excruciating eternity. The seconds crawled at an agonizing pace, each heartbeat a thunderous reminder of my helplessness in the face of this surreal terror. Finally, as abruptly as it had begun, the oppressive weight lifted, releasing me from the vice-like grip of paralysis. Gasping for air, I surged upright, a maelstrom of fear and relief washing over me in equal measure. With trembling limbs, I scanned the room, half expecting the malevolent presence to linger in the shadows, but finding only the familiar solitude of my surroundings. Alone and shaken, I sat in the aftermath of this harrowing experience, grappling with the lingering tendrils of fear that coiled around me. It It was a nightmarish episode, a testament to the labyrinthine depths of the mind's machinations, leaving an indelible mark on the sanctuary of my nocturnal refuge.